Hello there, I'm Dr. Bosky. I'm the creative director for Interstellar Sentinel, a shmup game, more of an adventure shmup game. And we are doing a 101 series for tips and tricks to help players improve their scores and to understand more of the underlying mechanics of the game. On Steam, there's a free demo. The game has been out for quite some time now. We'll continue to release updates. And we have... And the demo is the Caravan competition build, hence the reason why we're doing this tips and tricks series. So why don't we get into the weapon system?
Weapon system, mid-weapon. Rapid fire, great for dealing with low health enemies.
All right. So, basically, you have these things called gun portals. And the gun portals are basically fixed weapon points, and the gun portals summon guns. And so one of the things that is important to know, you have a rapid shot and you have a power shot. Those are the two buttons. I already did a thing on controls, so we won't cover that now. But I think something that's important is to know that your rapid shot, there's no penalty for always shooting. So always be shooting, never not shoot. And the rapid shot helps you understand where your weak spot is. This is the only place you can take damage. And we have low health enemies that we also call them popcorn enemies. And those will help you clear those enemies quite quickly, which is useful. And it helps you kind of visually stay aware of where you're at. All right. Let's, hello.
Bottom weapon, power shot. Great for dealing with high health enemies. Notice how much faster this weapon bay destroys these communities.
All right. So, cool thing here is this right? There we go. And do this. There we go. All right. So the other side of this is where your weapon point is. So pro tip for you, since this is your weak spot, that means you can do things like dunk this whole weapon inside of an enemy and do maximum damage, which is super cool. The other general rule of thumb is the core gameplay is that you are switching between your rapid shot and your power shot, and these are both press and hold. The power shot on average does 10 times more damage than the rapid shot. The rapid shot gives you great utility for being able to get very light damage, and you can definitely burn down a lot of things with it. But if you are finding enemies that are a little bit chonky and they're pushing you around on the screen, remember, your power shot is the answer to this. Now, the power shot also takes about 1/8 of a second to charge up and then shoot, and then it continues to shoot. It changes a little bit depending on the weapons, but that's the general wisdom there. So, and it also means, again, you can do things like use your weapon barrels to dunk inside of enemies to get extra point blanking damage. So, very, very cool stuff there. All right, and let's the other thing that's probably super useful to know, right, is that in this particular case, so you can see these missiles. So these missiles, they have a property called piercing, which means that you could line up a bunch of like bad dudes, like bad dude, bad dude, bad dude, and you can shoot one of these missiles and it'll go through all of them and it'll do damage to each of the enemy types. So my little squiggles. All right, so let's step back to it.
Communication transmission. Auto weapon, utility. Fires automatically when firing your top or bottom weapons.
All right, so let's roll that back a little bit. So the auto weapon is really interesting because, come on, open up. All right, because it will automatically trigger. In this case, it's a bunch of missiles that shoot out, and I think they have a homing property on this. Now, every time you upgrade weapons, and we'll do a more in-depth on weapons, this is just a quick primer. But it changes. So you should always pay attention to whatever your auto weapon is, because that's going to give you extra utility, and that will change the way you play. So with that, in particular, let's see, auto shot, what was I talking about? Rapid, power, utility. Yes. So a little pro tip for you is that when you're alternating between rapid and the power shots, it will also re-trigger. So sometimes if you have an auto weapon, that you want to retrigger, you get rewarded by that retrigger by switching between weapons. So if you're shooting your rapid shot and you switch to your power shot, it will retrigger your auto weapon utility. So it's not completely seen easily from the outset. All right.
Super weapon. Butt saver.
Super
Cancels
weapon
enemy
online.
bullets and makes you invulnerable. Try it out now.
I love this thing. All right. So the super weapon is just a tap. It's not a tap and hold. So a couple things about the super weapon that are important. One is you can see that you have a shield. So the shield signifies that you're invulnerable. That's super important because you can use this to save yourself. You can use this to go through geometry or to fly through enemies or to get a bunch of extra star gems. So the other thing is that you see this beam and this beam and this beam, this one. Each one of these beams does damage. And here you can see these, because this is technically an enemy dialogue, you can see these, they're called star gems. We'll talk more about that later in scoring. But the general rule here, right, is that think about it, it's like a shotgun in that if you get your super weapon close to an enemy and you get all 6 beams of damage, you're going to do boatloads of damage. But every beam also that passes through an enemy generates bonus score. I got your brains thinking now, don't I? All right. You see this being collected there. Super weapon online. So I'm kind of just demonstrating the differences with that, right? Is there anything else? Super weapon online. This is your, well, we can talk a little bit more about the UI, but up here you have your super weapon gauge, and we'll talk about power-ups in another video and all of that. But I think that those are the most important tips and tricks.
If you're defeated, your weapon set will downgrade to the previous weapon set. A weapon set is the top, mid, and bottom weapons. The Dr. Boss key that I know doesn't blow up starships too often. Well, not while he is inside them, at least. All
right. So we already talked about the fixed hard points. We talked about briefly there that the most important thing is that if you die, there are 19 different weapon sets, and a weapon set is 3 weapons. And as you progress through the game and collecting power-ups, you will increase your weapon. Weapons are more, you're not 19 times more powerful. They more upgrade with different utility. And that probably leads us to the last thing that's also important to know for the weapon system, which is, let me flip on over. I think it's here. Let me see. Is it this? Aha.
Captain's log. I'm placing the Veil Piercer starship on autopilot.
All right. So the last thing about the weapon system is that if you press the weapon dump button, you can see I pooped out a little power up here. So because we have so many weapons and it's truly a crazy spectacle of a game. I love this kind of like this switching of weapons. By the way, in terms of scoring, collecting weapon power-ups give you quite a bit of score. So all the things that are the core DNA of the game to getting optimum scores also mean that you want to utilize the weapon system. So, but for players that want to stay with certain weapons for certain scenarios, they can use the weapon dump button, and that creates always center screen a weapon dump power down, if you will. And if you collect this, it'll do a couple things. One is it'll proc your chain combo, meaning it'll keep it going. So that's important for keeping those high scores going. And then 2, it will take you backwards 1 weapon set. So, and we talked about that briefly. So, I'll leave it there. I think those are the main things. I don't want this video to get too long. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.